A Navy SEAL left the military, trusted his family, and bought a house in a quiet mountain town. Everything seemed perfect. Yet the entire town stayed silent whenever the house was mentioned. Only his dog acted differently, always stopping at one wall as if listening to something hidden. Behind that wall was a concealed door and a mistake no one dared to face. When the storm hit, the house began to repeat what had once happened there, but this time, he didn't walk away, and his dog led him to open the door just in time. Where are you watching from? Like and subscribe to help us reach 1,000 followers so we can keep sharing meaningful stories. Now, let's begin. The road into Everpine Ridge did not welcome strangers. It simply tolerated them. Snowmelt ran in thin silver lines along the edges of the asphalt, catching the pale northern light like something alive. Pines stood tall and silent on both sides, their branches heavy with the last of winter, whispering softly whenever the wind passed through. It was the kind of place where sound didn't travel far, and people didn't ask questions twice. Noah Whitaker drove slowly, one hand resting on the worn steering wheel of his old truck, the other relaxed but ready on the gear shift. He had driven roads far worse than this, roads that didn't exist on maps, roads that ended in gunfire, roads that never ended at all. This one was quiet. Too quiet. He wasn't a large man in the exaggerated way movies liked to show. No bulging muscles, no dramatic posture. But everything about him carried a kind of quiet precision. Around 6 feet tall, lean and tightly built, like a tool that had been sharpened over years of use. His face was clean-shaven, exposing a sharp jawline and defined cheekbones that seemed carved by discipline rather than genetics. His skin held the faint roughness of northern wind, lightly weathered, as if it remembered cold even when the air didn't demand it. His hair dark brown, cut short in a military style just slightly longer than regulation, shifted subtly as he stepped out of the truck. His gray-blue eyes scanned without hurry, without judgment. They didn't search for danger. They simply noticed it when it chose to reveal itself. Beside him, stepping down from the passenger seat with controlled grace, was German Shepherd Atlas, 6 years old, sable coat cream, gray and black blending like shadows across snow. His amber eyes were alert, not restless. He didn't bark, didn't rush. He observed. Atlas landed softly on the gravel, then paused, not out of hesitation, out of calculation. His ears tilted forward slightly, head angled toward the house ahead, a modest wooden structure set just beyond a narrow slope. It wasn't broken, it wasn't abandoned, but it didn't feel occupied. Noah noticed. Of course he did. "You good?" he asked quietly, more habit than question. Atlas didn't respond. He simply stood there a second longer than usual. Then, slowly, he walked forward. The house itself looked ordinary. That was the first thing Noah registered. Not charming, not ugly, just there. Wood siding faded by years of weather, a front porch slightly uneven but still sturdy, windows intact, clean enough to suggest recent maintenance, but not cared for. A place that had been lived in, then paused. Like someone had pressed stop instead of end. Noah exhaled slowly. He had seen worse. He had slept in worse. And he had trusted less. The paperwork had checked out. The title was clean. A local attorney had walked him through everything, though there had been a moment, brief and almost invisible, where the man had hesitated. Just a fraction of a second before saying, "No legal issues." Noah had noticed. He always noticed. But it hadn't been enough. Because the house hadn't come from a stranger. It had come from family. Evan Whitaker, his cousin. Older by a few years. Close enough growing up to share meals, not close enough to share everything. The kind of man who had once been sharp, quick with jokes, quicker with plans. And then, somewhere along the way, had softened into something harder to define. Tired, maybe. Noah hadn't asked too many questions when Evan offered the house. That wasn't how their relationship worked. Trust had always filled the spaces where curiosity might have gone. Now, standing in front of the house, Noah felt that trust shift slightly. Not break, just adjust. A truck passed slowly on the road behind him. Noah turned his head. The driver, an older man, maybe late 50s, looked directly at him for a moment too long. Not hostile, not curious. Measured. Then he looked away. Noah didn't react, but Atlas did. A slight shift in posture, a tightening through the shoulders. Nothing dramatic, just awareness. The truck disappeared down the road. The silence returned. Noah stepped onto the porch. The wood creaked under his weight, not dangerously, just enough to speak of age. He crouched briefly, running a hand along the edge of a plank. Smooth, worn, recently repaired in places. Someone had taken care of this house. At least, once. He stood, reached into his pocket, and pulled out the key. Cold metal. He turned it in the lock. The door opened easily. Too easily. No resistance, no stick, no protest from hinges that should have complained after time unused. The interior air met him with a faint scent wood, dust, and something else. Not decay, not mold, just stillness. Noah stepped inside. Atlas followed 2 steps behind. The living room opened up in front of them, simple and functional. Old furniture, clean surfaces, no clutter, no signs of hurried departure, just absence. Noah moved slowly, boots soft against the wooden floor. He didn't rush, didn't explore like a curious buyer. He moved like a man clearing a space. Left, right, corners, ceiling lines, everything where it should be. Except... Atlas stopped. It happened so quietly, Noah almost missed it. Atlas didn't bark, didn't growl. He just froze. Mid-step. His head turned slowly, deliberately toward a section of the wall Noah hadn't even looked at yet. His ears lifted, not sharply, but with focus. His body didn't tense. It settled, like he had found something. Noah followed his gaze. Just a wall, painted the same as the rest. No cracks, no marks, nothing. And yet, Noah felt it. Not fear, not instinct. Something subtler, a kind of misalignment, like a sentence with one word out of place. He took a step toward it. Atlas moved immediately, not aggressive, but direct. He stepped in front of Noah, blocking him. Noah stopped. They stood there for a moment, man and dog facing a wall that gave nothing back. Then Atlas exhaled softly and stepped aside. Noah didn't touch the wall. Not yet. Instead, he turned away. There would be time. There was always time. He moved deeper into the house, checking each room methodically. Kitchen, small dining area, a hallway leading toward the back. Everything consistent. Everything quiet. Too consistent. Like something had been arranged to look natural. Atlas followed closely now, no longer pausing, but never straying far. He stayed within reach, within sight, within control. When Noah finally returned to the living room, the light had shifted slightly through the window. Afternoon stretching toward evening. The kind of slow, pale light that made everything look softer than it really was. He set his bag down, looked around once more, and then, almost absent-mindedly, his gaze drifted back to the wall. The same spot. Atlas was already watching it. Noah exhaled. Not tense, not worried, just aware. "Yeah," he murmured. "I see it too." Atlas didn't move. Outside, the wind picked up just enough to stir the branches of the pines. The sound filtered through the walls, low and distant, like something remembered rather than heard. The house remained still, but it no longer felt empty. Noah stood in the center of the room, shoulders relaxed, eyes steady. He had entered places far more dangerous than this, places where the threat was immediate, obvious, undeniable. This was different. This was quieter. And somehow, that made it harder to ignore. Morning arrived quietly in Everpine Ridge, not with brightness, but with a slow, pale lifting of the dark like someone carefully peeling night away from the edges of the world. Noah Whitaker was already awake before the light reached the windows. He always was. Years of training had carved that habit into him so deeply that even silence couldn't dull it. His eyes opened without urgency, his body still, breath steady. For a few seconds, he didn't move. He simply listened. The house had its own rhythm. Wood expanding with temperature, pipes settling somewhere in the walls, a faint whisper of wind brushing against the siding. Nothing unusual. Nothing that explained the weight he felt in his chest. Not fear, just awareness. Beside the bed, German Shepherd Atlas was already sitting upright. He hadn't been asleep, Noah could tell. Where Atlas didn't turn his head when Noah shifted slightly. His gaze remained fixed toward the hallway beyond the bedroom door, not tense, not aggressive, just present. Noah pushed himself up slowly, the worn fabric of his olive tactical shirt creasing softly against his skin. The red thermal beneath it held a faint warmth, a contrast to the cold air that lingered in the room. He ran a hand briefly over his face, feeling the roughness of skin that had seen too many winters, too many long nights without sleep. "You hear something?" he asked quietly. Atlas didn't respond. He rarely did in ways people expected. Instead, he stood, walked to the door, and waited. Noah followed. The hallway stretched ahead, narrow and unremarkable, lit faintly by the early morning glow slipping through a distant window. Dust motes drifted lazily in the air, catching light in slow, deliberate patterns. Noah stepped forward. The floor beneath his boots felt stable, solid, until it didn't. A slight give. Barely noticeable, but enough. He stopped, shifted his weight again, carefully this time. There it was. A soft depression no more than a fraction of an inch, but wrong in a way that couldn't be ignored. Noah crouched, placing his palm flat against the wood. The surface was smooth, worn by years of use, but beneath that, something uneven, something that hadn't settled naturally. Atlas moved closer, lowered his head, and pressed his nose briefly to the exact same spot. Then stepped back, not alarmed, but not comfortable either. Noah stood. His eyes moved, not randomly, but with intention mapping the hallway in his mind. Measurements, angles, distances, the way a soldier reads terrain. He didn't need tools yet. He needed patterns. The kitchen greeted him with a different kind of silence, more open, less contained. He moved through it slowly, opening cabinets, checking hinges, running fingers along surfaces. Everything was clean. Not recently cleaned, just maintained. No clutter, no signs of hurried packing or abandonment, just absence. He paused at the sink, staring out through the small window above it. A figure stood across the road. An elderly woman. She hadn't been there before. She was thin, almost fragile in appearance, wrapped in a long gray coat that hung loosely from her narrow shoulders. Her hair, white and pulled back into a low, uneven knot, moved slightly in the breeze. Her skin was pale, lined deeply around the mouth and eyes, not from age alone, but from years of holding expressions she never spoke out loud. She wasn't looking at Noah. She was looking at Atlas. Her gaze held steady, curious, but not surprised. Like she had expected him. Noah watched for a moment, then stepped outside. The air bit lightly at his face, carrying the clean scent of melting snow and pine. "Morning," he said, voice calm. The woman didn't answer immediately. Up close, Noah could see her eyes more clearly, pale blue, clouded slightly with age, but still sharp in a way that suggested she missed very little. "You're the one who bought it," she said finally. Her voice was thin, but not weak. Noah nodded once. "Recently." She glanced at the house, then back at Atlas. "That one listens," she said. Noah's brow shifted slightly. "He does." The woman took a slow step closer, her boots pressing softly into the damp gravel. "Good," she murmured. A pause. Then quieter. "Because people don't." Noah didn't interrupt, didn't push. He had learned long ago that silence often revealed more than questions ever could. The woman exhaled slowly, her breath visible in the cool air. "This house," she said, "doesn't break loud." Noah's gaze sharpened, though his posture remained relaxed. "What does that mean?" She gave the faintest hint of a smile, not warm, not cold, just knowing. "It shifts," she replied. "Oh, little things first." Her eyes moved briefly toward the house again. "People don't notice little things." Noah followed her gaze. "I do," he said. She studied him for a moment longer, then nodded. "I figured." Atlas moved suddenly. Not fast, not aggressive, but deliberate. He stepped forward, placing himself between Noah and the woman, not in a protective stance, but in a line that redirected attention. His head tilted slightly, his eyes locked onto something behind her. Noah's instinct followed immediately. He turned. There was nothing there. Just the road. The trees, the same quiet stretch of Everpine Ridge. When he looked back, the woman had taken a step away, not retreating, just distancing. Her expression had changed, not fear, recognition. "You'll hear it tonight," she said. Noah's voice stayed even. "Hear what?" She didn't answer. Instead, she turned slowly, walking back toward the house across the road with measured, careful steps. Atlas watched her go, until she disappeared inside. Only then did he relax. Noah stood still for a moment longer, then turned back toward the house. The rest of the morning unfolded in small discoveries, none of them dramatic, all of them wrong. A cabinet door that didn't align with the frame. A section of wall that felt slightly cooler than the rest. A faint line in the paint, almost invisible, running vertically along part of the living room. Noah didn't touch it. Not yet. He didn't need to. Not until he understood more. By midday, the light had shifted again, stronger now, cutting clean lines through the windows and across the floor. Atlas lay near the center of the room, not sleeping. Watching. Always watching. Noah leaned against the doorway, arms folded loosely, eyes tracing the space with quiet intensity. He had entered places designed to deceive, rooms built to confuse, to trap, to hide. This wasn't that. This was something simpler, something human. And that made it harder, because human mistakes didn't announce themselves. They settled. They shifted. They waited. As evening approached, the temperature began to drop again, the air tightening with the promise of another cold night. Noah moved through the house one last time, checking doors, windows, structure. Everything remained intact. Everything remained slightly off. He returned to the living room as the light faded. Atlas lifted his head. Their eyes met. No words, no signals, just understanding. Outside, the wind picked up again, brushing against the walls with a soft, uneven rhythm. Inside, the house responded. A faint sound. Almost nothing. Just a single, dull knock from somewhere deeper within. Noah didn't move. Atlas didn't either. They both listened. By late afternoon, the town revealed itself in fragments, not through conversation, but through absence. Noah Whitaker drove slowly along the narrow road that cut through Everpine Ridge, his truck tires crunching lightly over gravel and patches of thawing ice. The place wasn't abandoned. People lived here. You could tell by the smoke curling from chimneys, by the cars parked neatly beside small houses, by the faint sounds of life tucked behind closed doors. But no one lingered outside. No one waved. No one asked who he was. That, more than anything, felt deliberate. Beside him, German Shepherd Atlas sat upright, head slightly forward, nose occasionally lifting, as if sampling something carried in the air that Noah couldn't perceive. His posture wasn't tense, but it wasn't relaxed either. He was working. Noah pulled over near a small structure that looked older than the rest of the town. A garage with peeling paint and a sagging roofline that had been reinforced more than once over the years. The sign above the door read simply, Keen Auto. The letters were faded, but not forgotten. Noah stepped out. Atlas followed immediately, boots and paws hitting the ground in quiet unison. Inside, the air smelled like oil, metal, and time. Tools hung neatly along the walls, not polished, not decorative, but used. Wrenches worn smooth from decades of grip. A workbench scarred by years of impact. Nothing wasted. Nothing unnecessary. A man stood at the far end of the garage, bent slightly over the open hood of an old pickup. He didn't look up right away. He didn't need to. "You're the new one," he said. His voice was rough, not from age alone, but from use. Like something that had been sharpened too often and worn down at the same time. Noah didn't answer immediately. He studied the man first. Arthur Keene was older than Noah expected. Late 60s, maybe pushing 70, but not fragile. His frame was lean, slightly stooped, not from weakness, but from years spent bent over engines. His hair was thin and gray, receding unevenly, and his face carried deep lines that didn't come from smiling. They came from holding things in. His hands were the most telling, scarred, stained, steady. A man who had fixed problems his whole life and learned which ones couldn't be fixed. That obvious? Noah asked. Arthur finally looked up. His eyes were pale, almost washed out by age, but there was nothing dull about them. They moved once quick, precise-taking in Noah, then Atlas, then back to Noah again. "You parked in front of a place people avoid," Arthur said. "Makes you noticeable." Noah gave a small nod. Fair enough." Arthur wiped his hands on a rag, though they didn't get any cleaner. "You need something?" he asked. "No," Noah replied. "Just figured I'd see who works on cars out here." Arthur's mouth shifted slightly, not quite a smile. "I do," he said. Atlas moved. Not toward the man, toward the garage. He walked slowly along the edge of the space, nose low, tracing invisible lines across the concrete floor. He paused near a stack of old tires, then moved again, circling once before returning to Noah's side. Arthur watched him, longer than he had watched Noah. "That dog of yours," he said. "He doesn't waste motion." "No," Noah said. Arthur nodded once. "Good." Silence settled between them. Not awkward, just measured. Arthur leaned back against the workbench, folding the rag in his hands with slow, deliberate movements. "You bought the Whitaker place," he said. It wasn't a question. Noah didn't react outwardly, but something inside him aligned. "You knew that without asking," he said. Arthur shrugged lightly. Not many people come here and don't belong to something," he replied. "You don't belong to this place yet." Noah let that sit. Then, "You knew the house before?" Arthur's eyes shifted just slightly. Enough. Atlas stiffened. Not sharply, not dramatically, but his focus snapped into place like a switch flipping. His head turned toward the far wall of the garage, where a row of metal cabinets stood closed, untouched. He walked toward them, slow, deliberate, and stopped. No barking, no scratching. He just stood there, staring. Arthur noticed. Of course he did. "What's he seeing?" he asked. Noah didn't answer right away, because he didn't know, but he understood something else. Atlas wasn't reacting to sound or scent. He was reacting to memory, not his own. The space held it, whatever it was. Atlas exhaled once, then turned back, as if deciding, not here, not yet. Arthur watched the dog return, then looked back at Noah. "You should listen to him," he said quietly. I do," Noah replied. Arthur shook his head slightly. "No," he said. "You hear him?" A pause. "Listening comes later." Noah stepped closer to the workbench. "Tell me about the house." Arthur didn't answer immediately. He looked down at his hands, flexed them once, as if testing something old. Then, "You ever been somewhere that didn't feel wrong," he said, "but didn't feel right either?" Noah met his gaze. "Yes." Arthur nodded. "That place," he said, "was built solid. No shortcuts. No cheap work." "That's what I saw," Noah replied. Arthur's eyes darkened slightly. "Yeah," he said. "That's the problem." Noah didn't interrupt. Arthur pushed himself off the bench, walking slowly to a nearby stool and lowering himself onto it with controlled effort. Not weak, just careful. "There was a winter," he said, voice quieter now. Years back. Bad one. Noah waited. Storm came in fast, Arthur continued. Knocked out power. Roads froze over. Town got cut off for a few days. He glanced up. You know how that goes. Noah nodded once. I do. Arthur leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on his knees. There was a woman living in that house, he said. Older, not helpless, just alone more than she should have been. His fingers tightened briefly. Her son left for a couple days. Thought he'd be back before it got bad. Noah felt the shift. Not in the story, in the way it was being told. He wasn't, Noah said. Arthur shook his head. No. The garage seemed quieter now. Even the faint ticking of cooling metal had stopped. Arthur's gaze drifted not to Noah, but somewhere past him. To a door, he said. One that didn't open when it should have. Noah didn't move. Wood swells, frames shift, temperature drops. Things stick, Arthur continued. Usually it's nothing. His voice thinned slightly. Usually. Atlas lowered himself to the floor beside Noah. Not relaxed, but grounded. Present. Arthur exhaled slowly. I got called when the roads cleared, he said. Neighbor hadn't seen her in a while. His jaw tightened. I broke the door. A pause. I shouldn't have had to. Noah held his gaze. How long? Arthur didn't answer. Not directly. Long enough, he said. Silence returned. Heavier now. Not empty. Filled. Arthur looked back at Noah. She didn't die from anything complicated, he said. No violence. No mystery. His eyes sharpened. She died because no one heard her. Noah's chest tightened just slightly. Not emotion. Recognition. Arthur stood slowly, walked past Noah, stopped near the open garage door. You're not the kind of man who misses things, he said without turning. Noah didn't respond. Arthur continued. But houses like that, he said, they don't break in ways you can see right away. He glanced back once. They start small. Noah nodded. I've noticed. Arthur's gaze shifted to Atlas. Then you're already ahead of where you should be. Outside, the light had begun to fade again, stretching long shadows across the ground. Noah stepped toward the door. Thanks, he said. Arthur didn't answer. He just watched them leave. As Noah climbed back into the truck, Atlas hesitated for half a second before following. Noah noticed. He always did. The drive back felt shorter. Or maybe it wasn't the distance that had changed. The house came into view again unchanged. Still. Waiting. Noah shut off the engine. Sat for a moment. Then stepped out. Atlas followed immediately this time. No hesitation. They entered together. Inside, the air felt colder than before. Not dramatically. Just enough. Noah moved toward the center of the living room. Stopped. Listened. Nothing. Atlas took a few steps ahead. Paused. Then turned his head slowly, deliberately toward the deeper part of the house. Noah followed his gaze. The silence stretched, and somewhere beneath it, something shifted. Not loud, not clear, but real. Noah didn't move. Atlas didn't either. They didn't need to, not yet. The house felt different the moment Noah Whitaker stepped back inside. Not colder, not darker, just aware. It wasn't something he could measure or confirm. There was no shift in temperature he could point to, no sound he could isolate and analyze. But the structure, the space between walls, the silence between sounds, felt tighter, like something had been narrowed. Atlas moved ahead of him, not hesitating this time. That alone told Noah enough. The late afternoon light stretched low across the floor, cutting through the living room in long, angled lines. Dust floated in the air, slow and unbothered. Everything looked the same as before, but Noah no longer trusted what looked the same. He stepped toward the wall, not rushed, not cautious, just decided. Atlas stopped beside him, his body lowered slightly, not in fear. Well, not in defense, but in focus. His amber eyes fixed on the vertical line in the paint, the one Noah had noticed earlier. It was barely visible, a faint irregularity in texture, running from shoulder height down toward the floor. Noah reached out. His fingers hovered for a second, then pressed. The surface was smooth. Too smooth. Not in the way of fresh paint, but in the way of something that had been matched carefully. The wall gave nothing back, but the temperature beneath his fingertips felt subtly different, cooler, denser. He moved his hand slowly along the line. There. A change. A shift in resistance, almost imperceptible, but real. Noah stepped back, eyes narrowing slightly. His mind began reconstructing. Measurements, layout, space. He turned, scanning the room again, not as a whole, but in sections. The distance from the window to the corner. The width of the hallway beyond. The exterior dimensions he had seen from outside. It didn't align. Not perfectly. He crouched, or ran his palm along the baseboard. There was a slight inconsistency in the wood grain, a segment that had been replaced or added. Atlas shifted closer, pressed his nose briefly to that same point, then stepped back again. Noah stood. "All right," he said quietly. No hesitation now. He moved toward his gear bag, retrieving a compact pry bar and a flashlight. The metal felt familiar in his hand. Solid. Reliable. Honest. Unlike the wall. The first strike was controlled. Not forceful. Just enough to test. The sound that came back wasn't right. It wasn't the dull, full response of a load-bearing wall. It was hollow. Noah paused. Listened. Nothing. The second strike carried more weight. The wood splintered not violently, but with resistance. The outer layer gave way, revealing a thinner backing beneath. Not original construction. Modification. Atlas didn't move, didn't bark. He simply watched. Noah worked methodically, each movement deliberate, each piece removed with care. While he wasn't tearing through the wall, he was uncovering it. The opening widened slowly, enough to fit a hand, then an arm, then light. The beam of Noah's flashlight slipped through the gap before he did. It cut into darkness that wasn't empty. The light landed on something immediately. Not debris, not storage. A chair, positioned facing the door, not pushed aside, not forgotten. Placed. Noah didn't move, because something about it felt wrong, not in a way that triggered fear, in a way that suggested intent. Atlas stepped forward then. Just one step. His ears lifted slightly, not sharply, but enough to signal something precise. He wasn't reacting to danger. He was reacting to presence that had been there. Noah exhaled slowly, then widened the opening. The wall gave way enough for him to step through. He didn't rush. Didn't force. He entered like he had entered countless unknown spaces before, quiet, controlled, aware of every inch. The room was smaller than he expected. Well, not by design, by reduction. The original structure had been larger. He could see it in the spacing, in the way the floor extended slightly beyond the visible boundary of the wall. The added partition had cut the space down, reshaping it into something tighter, narrower. A storage room. That's what it was meant to be, but it hadn't stayed that way. The air inside was dry. Still, not stale, but untouched. There was no mold, no decay, just time. Suspended. Noah swept the flashlight slowly across the room. The chair remained where it was. Simple wood, worn, facing the door. To the left, a narrow bed frame, no mattress, just the imprint where one had been. To the right, a small table. Nothing on it. No objects, no signs of hurried use, just absence. And the door. Noah turned the light toward it. It was older than the rest of the room. Original, heavy wood, slightly warped along the edges. But the handle sat at a slight angle, not broken, but misaligned. The frame showed subtle stress marks where the material had shifted over time. He stepped closer, ran his fingers along the edge. The wood felt uneven, compressed in places, expanded in others. Temperature, moisture, time. He tested the handle, turned it. The mechanism moved, but not smoothly. He pulled. The door resisted. Noah stepped back. Considered. Then pushed. It closed. Not completely, but enough. He tried again. This time with more pressure. The door sealed into place, and then it didn't move. Noah stood still, one hand on the handle. He pulled. Nothing. Atlas moved instantly, not frantic, not aggressive, but precise. He stepped forward, placing his body close to Noah's leg, his head angled toward the lower hinge of the door. Noah followed the line of his attention. The frame. It had shifted. Barely. But enough. Noah adjusted his grip, changed the angle, pulled again, this time not straight but slightly upward. The wood creaked, resisted, then released. The door opened. Noah stepped back. Exhaled. He didn't need anyone to explain it anymore. He had felt it. He had. Understood it. Tested it. This wasn't a mystery. It was a failure. A small one. A mechanical one. The kind that didn't matter until it did. Atlas moved into the room fully now. He didn't explore, didn't circle. He walked straight to the chair, stopped, and sat. Not guarding, not claiming, just occupying the space. Noah watched him, then looked around again. The scratches on the inside of the door caught his attention. Not deep, not violent, just repeated. Patterns of pressure. Attempts. He crouched, ran his fingers lightly across them. Someone had tried to open this door. From the inside. Noah stood slowly. His eyes moved once more across the room. The bed. The chair. The door. Nothing dramatic. Nothing exaggerated. Just the quiet, undeniable evidence of something that had happened exactly the way Arthur described. Noah stepped back through the opening. Atlas followed immediately. He didn't close the wall. Didn't try to hide it again. Instead, he stood in the living room. He stood, looking at the space as it now truly was. Not arranged. Not softened. Not reduced. Real. Outside, The light had faded completely. Night settled in without ceremony. Inside, the house didn't feel different anymore. Not heavier, not lighter. Just understood. Noah exhaled slowly. Not relief. Not tension. Something else. Recognition. Atlas moved beside him, leaning lightly against his leg. Noah rested a hand briefly on the dog's head. "You were right," he said quietly. Atlas didn't respond. He didn't need to. The house creaked softly, not as a warning, not as a signal, just as a structure adjusting to the cold. And this time, Noah knew exactly why. Night settled over Everpine Ridge in a quiet, steady way. There was no dramatic shift, no sudden darkness, just a gradual fading of light until everything outside the windows turned into silhouettes and shadows. Inside the house, Noah Whitaker sat near the center of the living room, his elbows resting on his knees, hands loosely clasped together. Behind him, the opened section of the wall remained exposed. He had made no attempt to cover it again. Some things, once revealed, had no place being hidden. Across the room, Atlas lay near the entrance of the uncovered space. The German Shepherd was not guarding it, not watching it with tension. He was simply there, calm but aware, his amber eyes shifting occasionally toward the room as if tracking something that no longer moved but still mattered. The house had changed. Not physically, but in the way it felt. It no longer resisted being understood. A knock sounded at the front door. Soft. Measured. Noah stood immediately. Not startled, just ready. He opened the door. Evan Whitaker stood outside. For a moment, Noah didn't recognize him. The man looked familiar, but something essential had shifted. Evan had always carried a certain ease in the way he moved, a casual looseness that made him approachable. That was gone now. He stood stiff, shoulders slightly hunched as if carrying something invisible, but heavy. He was in his early 40s. His hair, once thick and dark, now showed streaks of gray near the temples. His face was clean-shaven, but the skin beneath his eyes had sunk slightly, leaving a tired, hollow look. Not the kind that came from lack of sleep, but from repetition. From living with the same thoughts over and over. "You're settling in," Evan said. Noah stepped aside. "Come in." Evan hesitated briefly, then stepped inside. Atlas stood up. Not aggressive, but alert. His posture was steady, controlled. He watched Evan carefully, as if trying to place him in a memory he already understood. Evan noticed. "You still got him glued to you," he said. Noah didn't respond. Evan walked into the living room and stopped. His eyes landed on the exposed wall. His breathing changed. "You opened it," he said quietly. "I did," Noah replied. Evan didn't move closer at first. He didn't ask what was inside. He already knew. Atlas stepped forward, slowly. He stopped a few feet in front of Evan and sat down, facing him, not blocking him, not warning him, waiting. Evan looked down at the dog. Something in his expression shifted. Recognition. "You remember," Evan said softly. Noah watched him carefully. "You've been here since it happened," Noah said. Evan didn't deny it. He walked toward the opening, each step slower than the last. He stopped at the threshold of the room, did not enter, just stood there. "I tried to make it smaller," he said, but his voice had lost its control now. It was quieter. thinner. I thought if it wasn't all there, it wouldn't feel the same. Noah stayed where he was, You didn't tell me, he said. No. Why? Evan exhaled slowly. Because I didn't think it mattered anymore. Noah didn't react. That wasn't the full truth. Evan looked at him directly now. I came back, he said. The words came out too quickly. I wasn't gone long. I thought I had time. His hands moved slightly, then stopped. The storm hit faster than anyone expected. Noah held his gaze. I tried to get back. Roads were blocked. Phones were dead. His voice dropped. When I got home, she wasn't answering. He paused. I told myself she was asleep. Silence filled the room. I should have broken the door sooner, Evan said. Noah stepped closer. You didn't leave her on purpose. No, Evan said immediately. But you didn't act when you should have. Evan didn't answer. He didn't need to. You changed the room, Noah said. Evan nodded. I couldn't walk past that door every day. His voice lowered further. I couldn't hear it anymore. Noah's eyes narrowed slightly. Hear what? Evan hesitated. The knocking, he said, then quickly added, Not real, just in my head. Noah studied him. You sealed it off so you wouldn't have to remember it the same way. Evan didn't argue. Noah stepped closer. You didn't sell me a bad house, he said. Evan looked at him. You sold me something you didn't want to carry anymore. Evan's breath caught. No denial came. You didn't kill her, Noah continued. Evan's shoulders tightened. But you chose not to face what happened. The silence stretched. Then Evan exhaled. Something inside him shifted. Not relief. Not forgiveness. Just weight settling into place. I didn't think you'd open it, he said. Noah glanced briefly at Atlas. I didn't either. Evan followed his gaze. Atlas stood, walked toward the room, and stopped. He didn't enter. He didn't turn away. He simply acknowledged it. Noah looked back at Evan. You're not leaving it like this. Evan nodded. For the first time since arriving, he stepped forward. Into the room. The storm came in quietly, but it did not stay quiet for long. By nightfall, Everpine Ridge had vanished behind sheets of snow and wind. The sky pressed low and heavy, and the cold moved into everything it could reach. Wood tightened. Metal contracted. Even the air inside the house felt thinner. Inside, Noah Whitaker stood still in the living room, listening. Not to the storm, to the house. Every structure had a rhythm. Most people ignored it. They called it noise. But to Noah, it was information. Pressure. Tension. Movement. All of it spoke. Tonight, it was speaking more than usual. Across the room, German Shepherd Atlas stood near the exposed opening. He was not lying down, not relaxed. His body was steady, weight balanced, eyes fixed ahead. Noah stepped closer. You feel it, he said quietly. Atlas did not move. That was enough. The floor beneath Noah's boots felt tighter than before. The slight give from earlier had disappeared. The boards had pulled inward under the cold, pressing against each other. It was subtle, but it mattered. A sound broke the silence. Soft, compressed. Not from outside, from inside the house. Noah turned instantly. Atlas was already moving. They reached the room together. empty, for a moment. Then Noah turned and saw him. Arthur Keene stood in the hallway. Snow clung to his coat. His breathing was uneven, not from fear, but from the effort of getting here through the storm. "You shouldn't be out in this," Noah said. Arthur stepped forward slowly. "I didn't come for the storm," he replied. His eyes moved past Noah and into the room. Something changed in them. Recognition. Atlas watched him closely now, posture steady, ears slightly angled back. Not aggressive, just aware. Arthur stepped inside the room. He stopped near the door. His hand hovered over the handle. "I remember this part," he said. Noah moved closer. "Then don't touch it." Arthur didn't listen. Not because he wanted to ignore Noah, because he needed to finish something. He placed his hand on the handle. Outside, the wind surged. The house reacted. A low creak moved through the frame. Arthur pushed. The door closed. The sound was soft, but final. Noah stepped forward immediately. He grabbed the handle and turned it. It resisted. He pulled. Nothing. The frame had shifted under the cold. Faster than before. More severe. Arthur's breathing changed. He stared at the door. "It's happening again," he said quietly. Noah adjusted his grip. He changed the angle, pulling upward instead of straight back. Nothing. Atlas moved fast. He pressed against Noah's leg, then lowered his head toward the lower hinge, the same point as before. Noah understood. He shifted position, applying pressure at an angle. The wood groaned, but held. Outside, as the storm intensified, wind slammed into the house, tightening everything further. The temperature dropped again. The materials pulled tighter. The door locked deeper into place. Noah stepped back, thinking, calculating. Time mattered now. He looked at Arthur. "How long did it take last time?" Arthur didn't answer immediately. His eyes stayed on the door. Then he said quietly, "Too long." That was enough. Noah moved without hesitation. He grabbed the pry bar and stepped back into position. No testing this time. Only action. The first strike hit the edge of the frame. The wood cracked slightly. The second strike went deeper. The third forced a shift. A splitting sound ran through the frame. Atlas stepped back instantly, positioning himself outside the swing of the door. Noah changed approach. No more striking. Leverage. He pulled hard at the weakened point. For a second, nothing happened. Then the structure gave. The door shifted, opened just enough. Noah forced it the rest of the way. Arthur stumbled forward slightly, catching himself against the wall. Silence followed. The storm still raged outside. But inside, everything stopped. Noah stepped back, breathing steady. Atlas relaxed slightly. Arthur stood there, staring at the door, then slowly turned toward Noah. "This time," he said, "someone opened it." Noah didn't reply. He looked at the frame, at the cracked wood, at the pressure points, then back at Arthur. The meaning was clear. The house had done the same thing again. But this time the ending was different. Morning came quietly, as if the storm had never existed. Snow covered everything outside in a clean, unbroken layer. The trees stood still, their branches heavy but calm. The sky was pale, almost empty, holding no trace of the violence from the night before. Inside the house, the silence was different. Not tense, not waiting. just still. Noah Whitaker stood near the center of the living room, looking toward the open space where the wall had once hidden the room. The broken door frame remained exactly as it had been left, splintered wood and pressure lines visible in the morning light. Nothing about it looked neat, but nothing about it was unclear anymore. Across the room, German Shepherd Atlas walked slowly toward the doorway. He did not hesitate. He stepped inside the room fully, paws quiet against the wooden floor, when his body relaxed, but attentive. For the first time, he explored the space without tension. Noah watched him for a moment, then followed. The room felt different now. Not warmer, not lighter, but finished. The chair still faced the door. The bed frame remained empty. The marks along the inside of the door were still there, faint but permanent. Nothing had been erased, but nothing was hidden either. Noah crouched near the broken frame, running his fingers along the split wood. The damage told a clear story. Pressure had built, the structure had locked, and force had broken it open. Simple, physical, real. Behind him, a chair shifted. Arthur Keene sat near the kitchen, wrapped in a blanket, his posture heavy but steady. He had stayed through the night, refusing to leave even after the storm had begun to calm. "You fixed it," Arthur said. Noah stood up slowly. "No," he replied. "I stopped it from happening again." Arthur nodded, understanding the difference. They sat in silence for a while. Oh, not uncomfortable, just shared. After a moment, footsteps approached outside. Slow, careful. Then a knock. Noah walked to the door and opened it. Evan Whitaker stood there. He looked different. The weight was still there, but it no longer controlled him. His shoulders were still slightly lowered, but not guarded. His eyes no longer avoided the house. They faced it. "I figured you'd still be here," Evan said. Noah stepped aside. "Come in." Evan entered, brushing snow lightly from his coat. His eyes moved across the room, then stopped at the open wall. At the broken frame. At the truth. "You didn't close it," he said. "No," Noah answered. Evan nodded once. He walked toward the room, slower this time, not because he was afraid, but because he was aware. Every step felt intentional. Atlas stood inside the room and turned slightly as Evan approached. This time, he did not stop him. He simply watched. Evan reached the doorway and paused. "I used to stand here," he said quietly. Noah remained behind him, listening. "I'd tell myself it was just a room, just wood, just a door." He stepped inside. The air did not change. Nothing shifted. The room remained what it was. Evan walked toward the chair. He did not sit. He just stood there, looking at it. "I thought if I made it smaller, it wouldn't matter as much," he said. His voice was steady now. "I thought I could outlive it." Atlas moved. He walked past Evan, then turned, positioning himself near the doorway, facing outward. Not guarding, not warning, holding the space. Evan noticed. His expression softened slightly. Not relief, not forgiveness. Something quieter. Acceptance. Noah stepped closer. "You can't change what happened," he said. Evan nodded. "I know. But you can decide what it means now." Evan looked at the door, at the broken frame, at the marks that had never gone away. "I don't want to hide it anymore," he said. Noah did not respond immediately. He let the words settle. Then he nodded once, Good. Arthur stood slowly from the kitchen, walking toward them with careful steps. He stopped just outside the room, looking in. I should have broken that door faster, he said. Evan shook his head. We all should have done something faster, he replied. There was no anger in his voice, no blame, just truth. The three of them stood there for a moment. Different men, different mistakes. Same room. But this time, no one was avoiding it. Noah stepped back into the living room. So here's what happens, he said. Evan turned slightly. We fix the structure. We reinforce the frame. We make sure it never locks like that again. He paused. But we don't erase it. Evan nodded immediately. No. Arthur let out a slow breath. That's right. Noah looked once more at the room, then at Atlas. The dog remained steady, calm, no longer searching, no longer reacting. The problem had been understood. That was enough. Outside, sunlight began to break through the clouds. Faint at first, then stronger. The snow reflected the light back into the house, filling the space with a quiet brightness. Noah walked to the doorway and looked out. The storm was gone. The damage remained, but so did the chance to rebuild. Behind him, Evan moved a chair slightly, repositioning it, not removing it, just changing how it faced the room. A small act, but not a meaningless one. Arthur watched, then nodded. Noah stepped back inside, closing the front door gently. The house no longer felt like something that needed to be solved. It felt like something that had been faced. Atlas walked to his side and sat. Calm, grounded, present. Noah rested his hand briefly on the dog's head. No words. None were needed. The house creaked softly as the temperature shifted again. But this time, it was just wood adjusting. Nothing more. In the quiet after the storm, when everything that was hidden has finally been seen, there is a truth that feels almost like a miracle. Not the kind of miracle that breaks the laws of nature, but the kind that works through them. A door that once stayed shut can be opened. A mistake that once defined a life can be faced. A burden carried in silence can be shared. And in that sharing, it begins to lose its weight. Sometimes God does not send miracles as sudden light or dramatic rescue. Sometimes He sends them through people who choose to act when it matters. Through courage that shows up at the right moment, through a second chance that arrives quietly, asking only that we do not turn away this time. In our daily lives, there are doors we ignore, conversations we delay, truths we avoid because they feel too heavy to face. But what if the miracle is not in escaping those moments, but in finally stepping toward them with honesty, with faith, and with the willingness to change what comes next? If this story meant something to you, take a moment to share it with someone who might need it. Leave a comment and tell where you are watching from or what part touched you the most. And subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can continue to reach people who need them. May God watch over you, protect your path, and give you the strength to face whatever waits behind your own closed doors.